You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button.
I do want to start with this bit of news, and that is something that Brian Kelly said earlier this afternoon when he met with the media in Tampa after practice. And it's really good news for LSU. So you'll remember, heading into the Army game this year, Makai Wingo was going to sit out. He had been dealing with that lower body injury all year long. He's going to sit out. He had played the first 6 weeks with it. And I think everybody kind of thought, all right, you don't need him against Army. He's been your best defensive lineman, really for the most part. Really stepped up big when Mason Smith went out in 2022. That's carried over a bit here, All-American. You don't need him against Army. Bye week, have him back for Bama. Well, it was in that bye week that it was announced that he needed surgery on that lower body injury, and he was going to be out the remaining 6 weeks of the season. Today, Brian Kelly announced that Makai Wingo will play in LSU's bowl game, and that's significant for a couple reasons. Obviously, there's the on-the-field aspect of that, right? I mean, what we just went through. He's an All-American. He's been very, very good for you in the middle of that defensive line and been one of your more consistent players. That part, obviously extremely important. What goes along with that is the decision that Makai Wingo has to make. He has another year, or he could enter. You've seen this with LSU guys really throughout this bowl season, if you will. Most of them are planning on playing in the game. Jaden Daniels right now is the only one who's officially opted out of the game. You've had players enter the transfer portal and find new destinations who obviously won't be with you. But Brian Kelly also today said that every player who was active against Texas A&M is available to play. Now, we got a little bit of wrench thrown in that. We'll get to that momentarily. But having Makai Wingo is massive. For one, what he brings on the field, and two, given the decision that he still has to make, that's huge news. I want to talk a little bit more about it in the 4 o'clock hour when we kind of compare and contrast LSU and Wisconsin's team that they have coming in. The other bit of news is Lance Hurd, and Shea Dixon at On 3 had this first. Lance Hurd did not travel with the team, offensive tackle freshman, did not travel with the team to Tampa. No reason was given. Brian Kelly and LSU have not even confirmed it yet, but Wilson Alexander from The Advocate has since confirmed Shea's initial report that Lance Hurd is not with the team. So while Brian Kelly said everyone who is available for the Texas A&M game and active is available to play in this bowl game, they want to, quote, finish what they started. Lance Hurd, who played in that Texas A&M game, you can count him not in that number right now. We'll keep you posted if anything pops off there. Okay. That's the most current roster news with LSU. What broke this morning was not surprising, and that was that Duce Chestnut officially entered his name into the NCAA transfer portal. So, look, it's just not surprising. The guy hasn't been with the team since after the first 4 weeks of the year. After the Arkansas game, you never saw him again. So I think, and anytime Brian Kelly was asked about it, it was a real, I don't want to say he sidestepped the question, but he kind of sidestepped the question. It was always, look, we're focused on the guys that are here, or we're going to sit down with Duce and discuss. I mean, that was the answer given earlier after the Texas A&M game earlier this month was, we haven't gotten through the semester yet. After, we'll sit down with Duce Chestnut and Denver Harris for that matter and see what best suits them. Well, now we know officially what best suits Duce Chestnut. He's going to enter the transfer portal and look for his third school. I don't think anyone listening to me right now is going to be disappointed that any type of change is coming to the LSU secondary or on the defensive side of the ball for LSU for that matter. And look, I don't blame any of you for feeling that way. You should feel that way. Like you should be like, all right, here's what we've been waiting for all year. Change is starting to happen. Maybe it's moving a little slower than some of you want, and I get it, but it is afoot. What's interesting to me, though, is when I kind of sat back and actually looked at it, Duce Chestnut was kind of, and don't misunderstand me, I'm not putting every bit of LSU secondary struggles on Duce Chestnut. That would be completely unfair. They weren't good at safety. They weren't good at corner. They were bad. They weren't good. But that was kind of like the first real domino to fall when you go back and think about it. LSU took that same approach in a sense that they did in Brian Kelly's first year. They had to get guys ready-made who could come in and start immediately in the secondary, at corner specifically, to replace Garner, to replace Jarek Bernard-Converse. And Zy Alexander and Duce Chestnut were really thought to be those two guys that could come in. You look at a guy like Chestnut, freshman All-American at Syracuse, All-ACCR honorable mention, started 2 years. The other thing was the multiple years of eligibility. That was something Brian Kelly had talked about an awful lot when he talked about rebuilding that room this past offseason, where you had a guy like Garner, you had a guy like Converse. They came in, they were fantastic. I mean, Converse turned himself into a day 2 pick in the NFL draft. Like, very good. But they had the 1 year. You wanted more of those multiple year guys, so you didn't have to go in and rebuild it every year. Chestnut fit that bill. Zy Alexander fit that bill. And both of them fit the veteran bill as well. I mean, you could have got like Alexander, 2-time All-American at the FCS level. You bring in J.K. Johnson from Ohio State, same deal, right? Maybe not as proven, thought that'd be a little bit more of a project, and then he has the leg fracture in camp, and you don't see him. Maybe that's kind of the first domino, but Chestnut, Alexander were brought in to be Converse and Garner. Now, I say it was the first domino to fall because remember, in fall camp leading into the opener, you kind of started to see him being Duce Chestnut slip back to the pack kind of anyway. And Sage Ryan ends up getting that start at cornerback. He's cited as a good tackle, misses a tackle in the first play of the game. It's not going well. To be fair, didn't go well for really anybody in the LSU secondary that night. We remember Keon Coleman, right? The 3 touchdowns, we get it. Don't need to rehash that. But they put Chestnut in for a spark there in that game. He gets the interception, and that's really going to be the play that I think everybody remembers when they think about Duce Chestnut's time here. He never started, though. He could never really crack that. After that interception against Florida State, even in that game, it became really rough for him. And that was really your first domino, where, okay, now you have to start piecing that together with Sage Ryan. You already lost J.K. Johnson for the year. Denver Harris, the off-the-field problems are there. When he's on the field, it wasn't great, right? Everyone kept saying, no, he's a man coverage guy. Like that's what he is right now. You have to learn. Brian Kelly, he's learning the position. They counted a lot on Chestnut. It didn't work out. That was your first big miss, and it started the domino effect to where you ended up having to play the freshmen in Stamps and Toviano and Hughes. And then when Alexander goes down, it just keeps snowballing and keeps snowballing. You had to use Sage Ryan in so many different ways, and credit to him, he played so hard all year long to fill in those shoes. And then you have the off-the-field issues start with Duce Chestnut as well because he's not seeing the playing field, and it all compiles into this. But again, change is afoot. And that's the good thing when you look at this. You wish Duce Chestnut well at his next stop, and he should be immediately eligible now with the new rules, so best of luck to him. But he was a cornerstone piece of what they were trying to do, and because of that, he was also the first domino that really fell that led to such a struggle of a year in the secondary for LSU. And this is not, the only change. Obviously, the Terrence Welsh entered the portal, so now you have 2 cornerbacks there. And when you look at the room coming back, you love the numbers you have. You just have to see who can really come through for you. You'll have those 3 freshmen back we just talked about, Stamps, Toviano, Hughes. I mean, coming in the recruiting class, you feel real good about the numbers you signed there. Juwan Johnson's a 4-star corner. Love that. You have B.B. Causey. You have Wallace Foster. You have P.J. Woodland, all 3 stars that might take a little bit more time, but that LSU really likes and thinks they can develop. You like that aspect of it. From a safety perspective, that's really good. You bring in Jordan Gilbert, obviously out of the transfer portal from A&M, and then there's Deshaun McBride, who's one of, if not the top safety in the country. So you got great youth coming in there, and then J.K. Johnson, hopefully he's back off that injury. Zy Alexander, when he recovers from the ACL, he has another year that he can play at LSU. You have the numbers there. It's just, will it come together? That's going to be interesting. And look, they're not done. LSU will probably take a cornerback out of the transfer portal too before this is all said and done. And here's the other thing too, staff changes. You're still waiting on those. And while it may not be Matt House, there's going to be some type of staff change. And when you look at where LSU struggled the most, secondaries are right at the top of that list. That potentially could be the area there. So this is just another step in that change. There's more change. And like I said, to lead it off, I'm sure many of you are excited to see that change happening, and it should be, and you should be. So wish Duce Chestnut best of luck as he goes forward. LSU will rely. It doesn't change anything really for the bowl game. You weren't expecting to have him. You weren't going to have him. So you roll with what you've got going forward, and continue on and out. And after that, into the offseason, and we'll see what other change comes afoot for the LSU secondary, because it definitely feels like they are not done.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.